Hey everybody, this is DM Mike, and this is the next campaign diary for Rise of Tiamat. We are still in the Tomb of Diderius. As a matter of fact, this will be the last one for Tomb of Diderius because we wrapped it all up. And it was an amazing session, just so much fun. I didn't expect it to be this much fun. It wasn't as wacky as the last session. There were a couple things that could have been avoided, but we still had a really great time. I changed a lot of things in this dungeon, which will probably come out in chapter tips. I don't want to spend too much time on that. But anyway, we left off. Let's put the tabletop simulator map up. We left off after they destroyed the lizard folk right there at the entrance, the secret entrance from the tomb. And they went across the bridge, no problem. I mean, they had enough spells and different things to prevent any kind of slippage as they were going through. And they went past, now, well, here's the thing. They went past room 16, all right, which was the meditation chamber, which had the suits of armor and some statues in there. And I thought, again, this would be another encounter that I wouldn't have to worry about. They wouldn't do it, right? They wouldn't do it. So they went in there for a moment and then left. So nothing quite happened. But then Thimbraeus went back into the room and started messing around with the armors. And of course, two helmed horrors emerged. And we had to deal with that, right? So there was a huge encounter right there with the helmed horrors. They were difficult to hit, but ultimately they brought them down in a reasonable amount of time. It didn't take too long to deal with those. But anyway, they moved on from the meditation chamber, which I think is like, what is that, area 16. They went down the hallway of 18, and they went into the area of, well, 19. This sounds weird. This campaign diary, all these numbers. Anyway, the egg chamber, right? Or the hatchery, I should say. Now, I changed all this up, guys, if you're running this. I used out of, was it Volo's Guide? Brood guards, which actually do work with the Yuan-Ti, but they're like guardians of eggs, right? That's what they watch over. And I thought, that makes sense. So I removed a lot of the other encounters that were in there. And I'll put some images up here of the custom tokens. You can see it actually in the map. I spent a few hours just making up all these different custom tokens, pillars, eggs, and vines, and different things, and kind of populated that room with a lot of mist. And they did spend a little bit of time in there just looking around, and they were trying to kind of go past this area. But of course, Thimbraeus decided to cook one of the eggs. And of course, this triggered the next encounter, right? So it was like an Aliens moment, right? So I had the brood guard just suddenly popping out of everywhere. And I think there was about 8 of them in that room. And they were a little force to reckon with. I think a couple people there got hit quite a few times. I think Pax, Yithriel, and Thimbraeus all got hit pretty hard. Nothing life-threatening, but it was a little unexpected to be hit so many times by those creatures. And they managed to kind of wipe the floor with them eventually, right? So that was a fun little room. I loved setting all that up, but I really wasn't quite expecting anything to happen. They could have stealthed their way through, but I think it was the moment when Thimbraeus started cooking eggs. Well, that's what triggered it. So they went through all the other rooms one by one. I took out a lot of encounters there because, again, I felt like it was a little too much. So they went through the prison, nothing much there, right? They went through the lizard folk den. Nothing there because they really wiped out a lot of the lizard folk at the very beginning when they kind of came into the secret area, so there was nothing to deal with there. They had just fought the brood guard, so I felt like, okay, we don't need any more there. So we kind of kept going. Let me look at my map here. So they eventually, let's see, number 20 is, okay, that's the lizard folk den. Okay, so here's the fun thing. I'm going to put this other map up right now. This is the temple. All right, this is something I just completely designed from the ground up. Everything in here is kind of hand illustrated. I decided to do the webbing, the pillars, the eggs, of course, which I took from the hatchery, the floor, the throne. I'll put some images up. Maybe otherwise I'll just keep it on the tabletop simulator map here. But anyway, this was the most. I love this. This was a set piece, right? And I love this set piece. I love the idea of the 2D tokens and the flat planes that it created in this kind of depth. And I approached it like a one-act play or like a children's play where you put props up and they're all like very flat two-dimensional pieces. Really fun. And let me tell you, I set this up. This was the spectacle moment. This is the one I really was looking forward to, not only because of the set, but I had some cool encounters. I think I had cool encounters. And I also tailored the music to fit this environment. So I have Jerry Goldsmith's soundtrack to The Mummy, the first one that came out back in the 90s. And I edited together about 6 songs that were action-packed and had that kind of Egyptian feel. And boy, I started playing that and just the whole room just came to life. It was a very, very intense battle. I had these 2 creatures, which now I can't remember what they're called. They're giant kind of like scorpion creatures. As you can see, I changed everything. I changed everything. I took some out of the Volo's guide. I put in there a Nightmare Speaker, UNT Masons, or however you're supposed to pronounce it. Those two scorpion things, and they were just, oh man, it was a great encounter because everybody was, getting by the skin of their teeth. I mean, it was just, people were almost dropping several times. I think Pax did at least once. But it was just intense with these huge, large creatures running around. And then the UNT, which I kept way in the back to do long range. So they were pelting them with arrows as these, huge scorpions were just clawing and stinging and poisoning people. And then when one of the scorpions dropped, I introduced another enemy, which is another token I designed, 2D token, which was this huge snake. It was a mummy snake. Now, it wasn't undead. I just like the idea of calling it a mummy snake. That suddenly dropped out of the ceiling, and that was halfway through the encounter. And I was like, I'm going to use this because I drew it. It's coming onto this battlefield. I don't care what's going on. So I introduced this new creature, and man, it was just, I really wish I would have recorded this because it was a very, very intense combat. People were standing up. There was this conversations going on of like, how do we get this? Okay, I need to do this. I think everybody maxed out, used everything they possibly could to get through this encounter. I had people standing up taking pictures on the TV monitors of the battlefield, which I don't think I had those on my Facebook yet, but I might at some point. I mean, it was intense, but I think because of the synergy of the music, that mummy music and whatnot, it just made it fun. All right, it was a fun, intense encounter. I mean, I was hoping it would turn out that way, but it went beyond my expectations, right? And not because I did it, but because we all did it, right? It was just a lot of fun as people were going back and forth, near death, and then, I think Pax dropped at one point. She's always in the wrong place at the right time. It's just a weird thing her character is really bad at. She tries to get herself out of situations, but she happens to stop right where she's in range of 3 other people with longbows, and she just gets pelted. It's just stuff like that happens all the time. I feel really bad for her. So they captured Varam eventually. Like, they survive, but they capture Varam. They find the secret entrance, or exit, I should say. They get all the treasure. They go out there, and they camped outside of the tomb, and one of them had a spell called like the Zone of Truth or something like that. It's a Wonder Woman power minus the lasso. And really, they had Varam just spill his guts. I mean, he gave away a lot of information. I had no choice, right? I felt like, well, they've cast this spell. It makes sense. So he went on and on and on about a lot of things, and they got quite a bit of information for him. So the Tomb of Diderius wrapping up was a lot of fun. I think you can make it fun. Obviously, if you just kind of reduce some of those encounters and, just heighten some of those rooms up, especially the throne room area, which can be a lot of fun. So they left from there and went back to the Griffins in the Serpent Hills, or the camp there, and they kind of made a deal with them. And there was a break in between this session, right? We finished the session, then I had to say, okay, look, what's your next move? Because I need to prep. I need to know what you're going to do next, because this is a lot of things going on. We have all these side quests, and we still have the campaign itself. Well, the players decided before this game that they were going to go help Lucius's father, who'd been captured by the cult. I've already covered all this, but you know what I'm saying. So they went down to like I said, the Serpent Hills. And they said they convinced the Griffin commander to take him out to this mountain and then return Varam to Waterdeep. And that's what we did. And I ended the night with what I call a live cutscene. And that is, if you watch my cutscene, you know what I'm talking about. I have just, radio drama cutscenes, but then I have things where I'm sitting here at the table, I press play, and I have very specific music set up for this, and I narrate to the music. Yes, I practice, and I have to, make sure I'm on my musical cues, and I described them flying towards the mountain, and the Red Knights, the Crimson Six, which are a huge NPC faction. There's only 6 of them. They're like samurai. They're Ronin. They go around. They're mercenaries, but they're very, very old. Darn near ancient. They're NPCs I've had actually since I was in high school. I've always loved these guys, but they're mercenaries, and they have Lucius's father captured there in the mountain. And so I was describing these. They act like saints. These saints, the Crimson Six, sharpening their weapons and dipping their swords and spears into the lava and all this magical energies. as these Crimson Six were awaiting the arrival of the enemy. And it was great. The characters, the players really loved it. And it just, everything worked out that night, you know? I've had, 2 or 3 sessions back to back now that have been really great. And that's just a good feeling to have as a DM, right? I'm really proud of it. I love all the players. It's the symphony of the players and the DM all working together, and it really creates these awesome sessions. So that's where we ended it. We ended up on that cutscene, and then the next time we met, we began the search for Lucius' father and the confrontation with the Crimson Six, and that's the next campaign diary. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Hope this helps you if you're running it as a DM, just to what to expect and what you may encounter. But anyway, all right, guys, that's it. I'll see you in the next one.